Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing Logic and Lore from Weird Giraffe Games. Logic and Lore is a two-player logic puzzle. It's a competitive logic puzzle where players are trying to be the first to solve their particular puzzle. And the way that works is you're going to have this board over here. You're going to have your questions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 9 different questions. And then you're going to have your cards. Here's my row, here's my opponent. They are numbers 1 through 9, but neither of us knows which of our cards are where. Now, there are a bunch of different ways to play this game, and so I'm going to teach it to you what I think is the most straightforward way, and then kind of touch upon the various modes there are. So to me, the most straightforward way there is to play, not the easiest, but to try to give you a general idea of how it plays before adding in the various layers, you're basically going to have these 9 questions. You're going to hold up 2 cards. For example, I'm going to pick these 2 cards. I'm going to hold them up to you, and I'm going to say to you, what are the, well, I'm not going to say what these cards. I'm going to say, are these cards aligned? That means I'm asking, and I'm going to look at them because otherwise I can't really guide you. I'm asking you whether either of these cards are in the right place. And look at that, I got lucky, this 8 is in the right place. Now keep in mind, I don't know what these cards are, but you do. And so you will point to this card and say, yes, it's aligned. The reason you ask that question is that is the first question available to you on this board, moving from 1 all the way to 9. And so are they aligned, which I always recommend asking. I got a yes to this over here. I put this down. I now know that the 8 is in the right spot, and more importantly, well, not more importantly, just as importantly, I know that this is not a 1. So I'm just going to go ahead and take this, and I'm going to move it to the 2 column, because at the very least, I know that this was not a 1, therefore it's not an 8, not a 1, it might be something else. I might offset it a bit just to mark that, to remind myself that I've in some way looked at that, or not looked at it, in some way gotten information about it, and then it goes to the next player's turn. On my next turn, I'll go ahead and I can ask whatever I want. In this case, I'll keep asking about this. Let's keep moving this to the left as we go. So I'm going to go ahead and hold these 2 up over here. Let's hold the end one up and hold this. I'm going to say, are either of these aligned? Again, it's my next turn. We're back to me because I'm skipping the other side just to show you how to play this game. We'll again look at them. Oh my gosh, I got that 9 right again. So apparently I got the 9 right. I'm having a harder time showing you how to play this game, but at the very least, I'll move that 6. I don't know it's a 6. I'll move that 6 over here, and we'll see what more we can find out. It comes back to my turn again because it's only me for the sake of teaching this. And I will once again, I'm going to shift up. I'm going to ask a new question. I'm going to hold up these and say, are either of these aligned? And now I get to look at them and see they're not aligned. Fortunately, they're not aligned, which means I can go through the other questions and ask. So the person says no. Now, the reason I've always been stopping is you always stop when you get a yes to any of your questions. But I'm going to move on to the next one, keeping in mind you can skip. You can ask whatever you want. You don't have to ask 1 through 9. You can jump to whatever you want. But I'm going to go to the next question. Are they in sequence? In other words, are they a 2, 3, a 4, 5, an 8, 9? The answer is again a no. Do these add up to 10? The answer is no. I don't like this question so I'm not going to ask it. Is the sum greater than 10? No, it's not greater than 10. Well, also keep in mind, because the 8 and 9 are in play, if the sum is not greater than 10, well, it actually doesn't teach me all that much because it teaches me a little bit. It teaches me a little bit, but not all that much. Is either within 1 space of being aligned? So I ask that question, is either within 1 space of being aligned? And I get a yes, because the 2 is within 1 space of its column, so it's within 1 space of being aligned. So I now know, because of the nature of this board, I know that either this card is here, or this card is here or here, and it could be both. It could be both. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift this one here, and for the sake of simplicity, I will shift this one here, but keeping in mind, I don't actually know what's going on. I'm just setting myself up to ask questions. Now, you can offset cards to mark them. You can use these tokens, a whole pile of tokens with different symbols in them, different meanings in them. You can use that to mark things as you go. You can even do pen and paper if you want to agree that you can both take notes. Whatever it is you want to do, you're basically trying to ask progressive questions to be able to follow the logic as you line up your cards. Now, there is a point where you can eventually just kind of shoot the moon, so to speak. You can just say, I think I know it. My turn is not going to be asked a question. I'm just going to arrange my cards, because you can always arrange your cards in the game. You can arrange your cards, and then you ask the questions, then you can arrange the cards again, and at any point you can say, my turn is just going to be saying that this is the order. At which point you flip all the cards one at a time. If you got any of them wrong, you will lose. If you get them all right, you win. That is very important, specifically because sometimes you think the opponent is about to guess their order, and you're like, I don't know all of mine, but I got to go ahead and try now because otherwise they might win. So you have that one last-ditch effort. That's the core puzzle of Logic and Lore. There are a whole bunch of ways to play the game. There's the simpler mode, which eliminates most of the questions you can ask. You have only a few questions you can go through, makes it much more simpler, much more accessible. The more complex mode is going to have an area control puzzle. You're going to have these dragons, and at the start of your turn, you claim a question, and you go back and forth claiming questions. Whenever you get an aligned card, you'll remove your dragons from the board. Some of your dragons, you'll remove some of your dragons from cards, and you can only ask questions that you actually have your dragons on. So that introduces a bit of an area control element to the game where you're trying to think through which questions help you and not so much your opponent. And then there's also mode cards. There's a whole stack of all of these cards over here giving you different extra modes, intermediate versions, all these different things, different ways to play through the game. So those are going to add a whole nother level of variety and strategy to the game. There's also difficulty modifiers for when one player is better at the game. There's this concept called black holes. Black holes are basically cards you can mix in, and you have to figure out where your black holes are. But the tricky part is black holes are basically non-existent. They're nothing. So when you hold up a card and say, is it this? The answer is always no. They don't really exist. And you have to kind of figure out that your black holes are in play. There's a few ways you can kind of like for sure figure it out, and then remove them from play to proxy in those other cards that were out of play. So lots of, and the reason that's a difficulty modifier is there's 3 black holes. So you can have someone who knows the game really well can play with 3 black holes, and someone who's like, you know, just getting into it can play with 0 black holes or maybe 1 black hole just to experience what that has to offer. That's the basic idea of logic and lore. It's a game of asking questions. It's a game of figuring out which questions are the most advantageous. It's a game of trying to follow the pattern of both memory and logic to be able to get to the truth, to get to your order of cards faster and better and more efficiently. I guess that's faster. Faster is more efficiently than the other player. Which brings me to our review of what I like, don't like, can see others not liking, all of that, and links and timestamps to everything down below. Let's start off with what I like. This is a pure logic puzzle that is incredibly satisfying to solve and to go through. It's not pure logic. There is a dash of memory unless you start choosing to write things down, which for the sake of just gameplay accessibility, I prefer not to do that so far in my games. I haven't done it at all in terms of choosing to write everything down. To me, it's always about using these markers because these are quick memory tools, but you can't remember everything with the markers, and so inevitably you'll have information you're remembering, information you're deducing, information you're forgetting. So it's a pure logic, but with a dash of memory. But past that memory aspect, it's just about trying to logically sequence where things are as you solve the puzzle. It looks beautiful on the table, which doesn't hurt. I should note this playmat is not necessarily included with the base game. It's the base game just comes in a small little box, and then you have a playmat you can buy as an optional extra. I am not always a huge fan of optional extra playmats. This is definitely one of those games where if you're gonna like this game, I think the playmat definitely adds a nice quality of life touch to it. It's not essential. It is certainly nice, and I tend to be a little bit more dismissive of when playmats are essential. This is a nice one, but just worth knowing. Just don't think the playmat comes with this small regular box. But yeah, it's pure logic. It looks gorgeous on the table. The balance around the player skills over here, and the balance around those black holes, the fact that you can balance around how a player is better at the game is amazing, because if I've played the game a bunch, I'm going to be better than someone who's diving into it for the first time. And I love the fact that I don't have to feel like I have to pull my punches, because there's an inherent difficulty modifier in the game to make it so that I can try to play the hardest game and still be playing through a game where we're on level-ish playing field. So I really like those black holes. It also allows the other player to see them in action before having to deal with them themselves, which can be really, really helpful. Like, it's almost like a snicker as the first time you hold up some black holes and they're like, okay, why? Like, how are they going to deal with that? So I really like the player skill modification there. The tons of player modes. There's a lot of player modes. There's the basic intro game, there's the advanced game with the area control, and there's a whole bunch of other modes on these cards giving you things I haven't even played with. There's like these red suns that the answer to a question is the opposite of black holes. They're always yes. I'm excited to add that into my game. I haven't played that yet, and so this small box comes with a ton of variety to the ways you can experience the game, which I really appreciate, because my biggest challenge with games that are as good and as clean as this is that variability isn't there. I appreciate it so much, so I'll play it a lot, but then because I play it a lot, I'm like, it's the same game on the 15th play, so I love having modifications to the game, whether it's black holes, whether it's red suns, whether it's the different modes, whether it's the area control, all of these different things add different elements to the game, so I appreciate the variety to the player experience. The beautiful protection I talked about already, shooting the moon, that's a really fun element in the game, because you're going to have this aspect where you see the other players locking in for the deduction, you see they're working their way, and they're playing it fast and slow. They're not going to shoot the moon. Why gamble on a 50-50 when they can guarantee the thing and they know you're not close enough? And so the player who's ahead is almost certainly never going to gamble to shoot the moon because it's not worth that 50-50. Versus the player who's behind sees the player about to possibly win, and if you're close enough, even if there's like a 33% chance, you will sometimes go for that because you know otherwise you're going to lose, and that can be incredibly satisfying. So I really like that mechanic as well mixed into this game. There's a lot going on here that is really enjoyable, but at its core, the cleanliness of this logic puzzle, there's a lot of logic games out there. This is one that I am really enjoying. We'll come more back to that in final thoughts. As far as things I don't like in the game, first of all, I do think it needs more tokens. Like, there's a bunch of questions you can ask that are tied to specific tokens, and there's a bunch of questions that I feel could have had tokens and don't, and I I don't know why that is. Like, some things you just can't, but I feel there are a bunch of things that could have had tokens and they don't have tokens, and that bothers me that they don't have tokens because it feels like they could have had tokens. So it's a small little nitpick around the token element of the game, just only because I feel there could have been. Like, some of them, sure, but others, there could have been tokens in the game. Outside of that, I really don't like this one question. Is the sum of these odd? For me, in this game, I don't know if this is other players' experience, I find this to be the most useless question that I always skip it because it gives me the least actionable information in the game. And so, for me, I almost want to come up with my own question. The problem is it's not going to be as pretty, but I could just house rule. I have been thinking of a question to ask instead of, is the sum of these odd? But every other question, sometimes I skip them, sometimes I ask them, and I found that's true of the other players I play with as well. Is the sum of these odd? I just don't like that question. This is a small nitpick, to be very clear. Small nitpick, but this one question out of all the other questions, I just don't find that interesting. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not going to try to think of a question on the spot. We'll do that some other time. I'll also say that the area control element of the game, that mode with area control, I don't particularly care for it. I've played it, and I did walk in expecting to not love it, but when I did play it, I then didn't love it. So maybe it's confirmation bias, I don't know. It's not bad, I just don't think it added to the game, it just added to my level of distraction from the core experience. Like things like black holes, those are amazing. The red suns, I haven't played with them yet, they look amazing. I think that'll work really, really nicely in the game. To me, the area control puzzle didn't make the gameplay better because of the area control, it just added an element of distraction, and I don't care for when a game just adds an element of distraction. So these cute little dragons, that's amazing. I hope they come out with an expansion that uses them in a different way because I'm not going to throw them out. They're great, but I don't think I'm ever going to play that area control mode again. It just didn't add to the game for me, so I'm gonna pass on that one. I can't talk about the other game modes. Like the way the way the rules are structured, there's the light game, then there's the harder game, and then outside of that, there's all these modes to play with. So I haven't played through all the modes. I've played through all the core rulebook stuff and some of the modes. But outside of that, that is basically the things I don't like in the game. As far as I can see others not liking, the biggest thing to be mindful of is unless you go the pen and paper route, which will slow down the game, it is ultimately a memory game as much as it is a logic game. That is going to be true. You will use tokens to mark things, but trying to remember what you did, what you slid over, which card, when this was touched, like the tokens aren't perfect, and that means unless you go pen and paper, this is going to have a degree of memory, which might take away from your experience, especially if you don't like memory. Memory will enable you to have a better experience as much as logic and deduction will. As far as final thoughts in this game, I actually wrote down that I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5, and I realized I want to change that. I want to give it a 4.5 out of 5, and it does come with a caveat. It comes with a caveat, and I will say, I feel like recently I've had a string of good games that I really liked. I've only given 2 5 out of 5s this year, but I've given a bunch of 4.5s recently. It's just been a bunch of good games recently. But logic and lore, I am loving this one. Like, I've played this a bunch since first discovering it. I'm excited to dive into it more. I'll be playing it again tonight or tomorrow or sometime soon. I am far from done with this game, and that's with, like, I don't know, 7 or 8 plays under my belt already. It is a satisfying game experience, easy to play. Everyone I've shown it to has enjoyed it so far. I mean, granted, I haven't shown it to everyone I know, but from the people I've played it like, I don't know, 5 or 6 people, and everyone has enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it. We've all wanted to come back for more. Some of us have come back for more. Most of them haven't because I've been the common denominator. But I really like this. Again, the caveat part is that there's a bunch of game modes. Will it hold up to 20 plays? Will I still feel it's a 4.5 20 plays from now? I don't know. But right now, my excitement level is high enough that I wanted to bump it up from that 4. It is a very clean logic game that is very satisfying, very beautiful on the table. My copy has some nicked cards, and like I almost want to get a second copy and gift this one already. It doesn't matter at all, but I like this so much, I kind of want the pristine, perfect experience for it. This is Logic and Lore. 4.5 out of 5. Really enjoying this one. Highly recommend checking it out if you like logic puzzles. If you don't like logic, this is not going to change your mind. This is pure logic. Outside of that, as far as game recommendations, definitely check out the Shipwreck Arcana, both in terms of the visual production of the game as well as the logic puzzles going on. That's a cooperative logic puzzle, whole different way the game plays out, but multiple people, myself included, were like, oh, this is kind of like playing the Shipwreck Arcana, even though it's totally not. The vibes were there. And so check out the Shipwreck Arcana, an excellent cooperative logic puzzle to play. And if you want a different kind of logic puzzle, one of my favorites in the genre is going to be Tiwanuku. It's kind of Minesweeper combined with action optimization. It's a great game, highly recommended if you like logic puzzles as well. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this video helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.